That is so cool. Tell me about that. The song, I understand it's inspired by Draco Malfoy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You gotta tell
So
me.
that song, when I wrote that song, I had just come out of my every few years I go through a Harry Potter phase where I just marathon the whole series. And for the first time last year, I read the book series and I fell in love. I was so obsessed. My whole life sort of just became revolved around Harry Potter. And I was in love with Draco Malfoy because he was the bad boy and he was, like a Death Eater. He was like whatever. And so I went into my garage and I was like, oh, I want to write a song about being in love with the villain and the bad guy. And as I was writing it, I was having these other ideas and I was brainstorming and writing it down. And if you listen to it, you cannot hear whatsoever that it's about Draco Malfoy because it sort of became this whole other thing about being metaphorical and like, being stuck with someone, but being comfortable with that because it's what you're used to. And so I sort of ran with that thesis but it was inspired by Draco. So thanks, Draco, for the inspo.
So, which house you in? I'm Slytherin, all the way.
I'm Slytherin too.
Yeah. Go the green. The
Boom.
green.
I know I've done the Pottermore test like 5 million times and I get Slytherin every time.
I come out. I'm kind of like Harry Potter. Actually, I could go either way. But I always, after I did the first, well, when I got about 2/3 of the way through, I went, I'm going to come out as Gryffindor. I don't want to be Gryffindor.
Yeah, no one wants to be a Gryffindor. That's basic. It's like
Yeah, that's right.
default.
Yeah, it's kind of more interesting to do that. But look, that leads right into so you go and lock yourself in the garage. One of the themes of Northern Vibe is people really like to find out what inspires people who, how do you do what you do? Like,
Mm. Well, my creative process is sort of all over the place. For me, with the way I write my songs, I'm a very a lot of it's about the lyrics for me, and I like to tell narratives and stories in my writing. Because I'm a huge bookworm, so I like to, write stories. And so my creative process, I sort of have ideas at random times. Sometimes I'll have like a set session where I'll go in and be like, okay, I have to write a song about this, and I'll put my head down and do it. But most of the time, my inspiration comes in waves. Like I've had times at work where I'm literally like hiding under the counter recording voice memos because sometimes it just comes in my head. And I think that's the same for most creatives. It's not some it's random and it flows in waves.
I've always said that. Like, people have asked me about it, not that I don't have anywhere near your degree of talent, but I do scribble and people have said, oh, what's me personally, I can kind of like get to the stage now where I can discipline it a bit. It's like I sit down, it's like, okay, I'm going to write 500 words today, even if it's not a codswallop. And as you kind of like get into it, sometimes the muse will turn up when you're doing that.
Yeah.
But other times, and I'm sure you'll know what this is like, and this literally happens to me. Sometimes I will wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and the muse is in my head, and it's like kind of like someone turning up at your door, like a mate turning up at your door, 3 o'clock in the morning. He's drunk. He's banging on the door, going, "I want to have a beer now." And it's like, dude, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, I love beer. I want to have a beer, but like it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Can we do this?
That's a really good analogy.
Right now. Yeah. That's
a really good analogy. Yeah. That is what it's like a lot of the time. But yeah.
So I noticed that love is one of the recurring themes in your stuff there. So you want to talk about that?
No, I'm kidding. So the EP that I just put out, so if you listen to the EP in order, it sort of tells a story of someone falling so deeply in love and being head over heels, and then as you go through the songs, it falls apart, and then they're not together anymore. And then Stockholm is the last song in the EP, which, you know, tells the story of just getting so comfortable being with someone that no matter how badly they treat you or how messed up you know it is, you can't bring yourself to leave them. And I am, like I said, a lot of my songs I don't write from my own experience or perspective. I love to write stories and narratives for my songs. So yeah, that whole EP, the concept for it was that I wanted to tell a story of falling in love and then falling out of love.
So your first EP is out. That's really, really exciting for you. What's it called and where can we find it?
So it's called To You, and you can find it anywhere, any streaming platform or YouTube. If you have Spotify, anywhere.
Okay, excellent. Oops. Now, if you wouldn't mind talking about some of the nitty gritty, because I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there who are magnificent, you know, who themselves have talent. So they're writing music or they're writing books or whatever it is. How did you get from these songs to recorded album? Like, you know, itself, was there a platform that you used? How did you get your band together? Because
Yeah.
point A to point B, that's a massive, amazing story in and of itself. Mind talking about that?
It's a long and difficult process. Like, for anyone that's wanting to do it, just buckle in because it's a lot. Like, my experience, I was super lucky. My dad and my sister do hand balancing, and their coach is an incredible drummer, and he plays metal. So he's he's so skilled, he's so amazing, and he knows all the technical stuff. And my dad was like, "Oh, my daughter, she's a singer, she's writing music. You should like listen to her stuff. Like, maybe you guys could do something together." And so I sent him so the 5 songs that were on the EP, I had sent some of them that I had written. Stockholm was one of the first ones I'd sent, and he fell in love with Stockholm, and that sort of became his baby. And he was the one that rockified that song, because when I wrote it, it was just me and my guitar. So through him, I then met the pianist and the bass player that also recorded the guitar. So I was very lucky that I sort of had the connections to have the music written for me. I would go to sorry if I keep saying every Sunday we would go to the pianist's house, and I think we had 10 weeks to finish writing the whole EP and record all of the instruments down, because I was then taking all of those stems with me to Brisbane, and then I recorded my vocals at Plutonium Studios with Aidan Hogg, who was lovely. He was really great. And yeah, so we pretty much wrote and recorded all of the instrumental for the EP here, and then I did my vocals in Brisbane.
Wow. The
Yeah.
recording side of things, like, what did you do? Did you Google recording studio? Did you meet someone? You like, what happened?
So originally I was supposed to be recording with Simon Cohen, who's in Sydney, because I did a workshop with him where he sort of showed me how to mix vocals properly, and I was like, wow, I love this guy, he's so cool. He actually did Love Yourself by Justin Bieber, and Justin's like, oh, he was my biggest crush. Like, I was the biggest believer, so I was like, I have to go and record with Simon, like he's worked with my idol. And unfortunately, because of COVID and everything that went down, I couldn't fly to Sydney to do that. So we just had to research and look around and see what was possible. And Plutonium Studios with Aidan was like our best option. So in a good way, not like he wasn't good, but he was the best option. And we'd read up a lot of good stuff about it. So yeah, we just decided to go with that, and then sent it all across and was like, hey, would you want to work with me? And he was like, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So what, besides COVID, uh, and not having some people available, like what hurdles have you hit? Like, has there been,
Mm.
seems like you've had quite a few green lights and talent brings that, but like I'm sure you've had some hurdles you've had to jump. Would you mind talking about them?
Yeah. Well, just daily life in general, it's just a hurdle. I mean, like, for me, it was tough because I play a little bit of guitar and keys, but I'm not great, and that's because I've spent my time focusing on training vocals, and so for me, it was tough. Everything I've done previously to the EP, I did it all by myself. I just used tracks that I'd found online, and then I would mix myself. I just did everything by myself, and I was a lone wolf, and that's how I liked it. Um, and the thought of working with other people really, really scared me because music for me was such a personal thing that I was doing. So for this EP to then suddenly go into working with three other musicians who I didn't even really know that well, it was that in itself was a huge hurdle. But once I, started getting comfortable and was sharing my ideas and they weren't laughing at me and they were helpful and cool people, I was getting more comfortable and yeah, yeah, I'd say that was the biggest hurdle that I had.
Yeah, it's getting that degree of comfort, and then of course it's the everyday.
Mm,
So, what's your job? You know, you've got to turn up, and you've got to we've got to pay the bills. Like, right
yeah.
now, I genuinely think this creativity is going to go somewhere. I suspect you're going to end up doing this as your career, but right now, yeah, God willing, right,
Yeah.
you're just you're still having to pay the bills. How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, when I was writing this EP, I was still in school. So I just had a little side job that I worked on the weekends. I'm very lucky. I had my parents supporting me throughout that whole process. And now I still have my parents supporting me, but I do work. I work a lot more. Lately, I've been working like every single day because this is an expensive business,
Mm.
and um, yeah, it takes up like working and daily life. It's a struggle and it takes up so much time that I wish I could be spending just writing and doing music, but you gotta pay the bills.
Yeah, that's it. And
Hmm.
upside of doing stuff like that, um, I find is you got to prioritize. You know what I mean? So I end up being like I don't waste time on stuff that I just don't want to do. Um,
Yeah.
I don't go, I don't go to boring Christmas parties of people that I hardly know. I just don't do that.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to, and it's not that it's not that I wouldn't mind having a beer with those people, getting to know them better. It's just that
Mm.
it's 24 hours in a day. I want to do Northern Vibe. I want to write. I want to do these other things, and of course, my wife and kids come first, and then
Yeah.
the work does have to be pretty high on the hierarchy. Yeah, you're right. It's just
Mm. And it can be tough to prioritize the right things to I know with me, with growing up and being a teenager, I would watch my friends going and doing all these things that I could never do because, oh, I was home doing music, I had a gig. And it's like, I've, as I've evolved as a musician, I'm learning to prioritize it so much more. It's become so much more important to me. And it really teaches you when you're so busy with work, with music as well, and all these other daily life things you have to do. It really shows you like what's important and what you need to prioritize.
mm. And that leads. Speaking of important people, that leads on to the band. Tell me, band, who they are, and their skills and all that kind of stuff.
My band. So we've just gotten back from being in Early Beach, and it was literally the best experience of my whole life. It was so amazing. And as a band, I really think it was just perfect for us. We bonded so much and we became such close friends, just being around each other every single day. So my band on drums. we have Dave. Um, he is also a coach at Shoshin Movement. Um, incredible. I talked about him before. And then on guitar, we have Jaden, who he actually makes guitars and builds them. And so if anyone needs a guitar fixed or made, hit him up. Um, on bass, we have Dom. Dom is such a cool guy. He's pretty young too. He's um, well, we're all kind of pretty young. We're all in their 20s. He's from the Tablelands. And then on keys, we have Alex, who's been playing music for a long time. He's very wise and he knows a lot. And he's really fun. And yeah, I just love them all. They're all so amazing. And I'm so lucky that I get to work with them.
Alex will be thrilled to say that he's still so young. That's going to be a takeaway. And I know he's watching this. Did you hear that, Ma?
Did you hear that?
Oh, like, you know.
Yeah, you're so young, Alex.
So look, you, as part of your growing career, you are doing these amazing trips. Would you mind telling us about the American trip and then going a little bit more as to what you're doing on these trips and how it's developing your career? Is there any footage or anything that you want to show, any photographs or anything like that?
Yeah. So the trip to America, it was my first time in the US and it was crazy. I went to Nashville. So it was for the John Lennon songwriting competition. When I found out that I was final 10, I got flown over to Nashville and I stayed there for a week. And it was so crazy. It was such a like insane experience because it was so last minute too. We found out that I was going, I think like 3 days before we had to leave. So it all just felt so sudden and it was just like, oh, like okay, I'm going to America. And we got there and it was like we were in a movie scene. All the accents, every time we'd hear someone talk, we'd like laugh to each other. They sounded so southern. Um, and whilst I was there, I we did a lot of sightseeing. We went and saw stuff. We met all the other finalists who are amazing musicians, and it was so inspiring being there and seeing the talent that was around me. And it was such high standard. It was crazy. And just being around people that love the same thing as I do was, yeah, it was amazing. And then when I was there, I got to perform at the Exit Inn, which was crazy because bands like Paramore have played there. It was just, yeah, it was just like a dream. I wish I could have stayed longer.
All right, and the recent trip down to the sunny coast with the
Yeah, so Bailey Beach, it was honestly one of the best experiences of my life. We went down so it's a 3-day music festival, and we had gigs lined up every day. So the day that we got there, that night, we performed on the main stage. The finalists, we all performed. We didn't win, but it.
I'm sorry,
honestly, no, we didn't win. A band from Brisbane won, but they were so incredible. So you can't even be mad. Every single band that was there that played was just off the charts. Like when we were listening to everyone, we were sitting backstage like, ooh, okay, like this is our competition. Damn. Yeah. And so we performed main stage on the Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we had gigs every morning. So we played at 3 different venues. It was so cool the way the whole music festival is set up. There are all these different bars and clubs and beautiful venues that they get the bands to come and play live music, and it's like a rotation, and it's just so cool. It was so fun, and I wish I could go back and do it all over again.
Bet it sounds kind of awesome. So when did you first sing live?
Oh, so I grew up as a dancer. And I had really, 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 really bad stage fright when it came to singing, I never really sang for anyone. I just wouldn't. I would just get too scared. Um, and when I was really, really young, I must have been like 4, 5, 6. We have these, you know how we have a Stedfords here? We had little competitions like that in Scotland because that's where I'm from, if you didn't know. And I had to sing this Gaelic song, which is the Scottish language. And I don't really remember much of it, but I remember my mom saying that I was crying and hid behind her seat and sang it whilst like hiding and crying. I think my mind has just blocked that out of my memory because it was so traumatic. But the first time I ever sang was, I think it was like 2015. My mom entered me into this singing competition at the dinner theater. And it was so fun. At the time, my best friend at the time entered it with me. And then, yeah, I ended up winning the whole thing, which was crazy because I had never, sang as a solo artist for an audience before. And yeah, so that was the first time.
All right. And what got you into music? So was it that Gaelic singing, or was there something?
Music has always been a part of my life. I've always done it. Like where I grew up, even being a dancer, I was just always surrounded by the culture that we had, which was music and dance and, liveliness. So it's always been around me and it's in my blood. My dad's a huge music person, so I would grow up with him playing music. And when I was growing up, I mostly listened to like the pop icons like Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga. But as I grew up, I found myself like just being pulled to the thought of like being a singer and singing. And I would do it like whenever I was alone in the house, I would belt out these huge songs. And growing up, I started really getting into like the divas like Mariah and Whitney and Celine because I was just in awe of how they sang. And so I took a lot of inspiration from that. And musical theater too. I really got into that. Um, and yeah, I think just as I'm growing up and as I grew up, I just found a new love for music. When I came to Australia, when we moved here, at school, my friends were in the choir. So I joined the choir. And then one of my friends did this music excellence course and she was telling me it was so fun. She just got to sing every class. And I was like, ooh, like that would be really fun. And so then I auditioned and I got to do that. And yeah, my love for music just grew with time. Every day, I just found myself loving singing more and more.
You've listed quite a few inspirations and sources there, but is there any particular singer or genre that you've really got into that you find really really inspired you?
I think like the divas really vocally inspired me. They push the limits and just are crazy at singing. And I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be able to sing high notes like that and have those registers, and Mariah with her whistle notes. I took so much inspiration from those people.
Of course, and even today, I still just can't believe that Whitney Houston is no longer with us. But she used to, oh my God, like she was just amazing.
Crazy talent.
Yeah.
Insane.
So, in regards to the relationship between, natural ability and talent, have you found like the harder you worked, has it paid off for you, or has kind of like, have you always stayed around your degree of natural talent, or is it kind of like really, really like the training you're doing and the lessons you're learning on a scale of what, are they really helping you?
Yeah, absolutely. And not even just like vocal lessons and stuff like that, just the experiencing gigs and performing. Every time I do it, I'm a little bit more confident and comfortable. And especially after our experience at the festival, I really, yeah, absolutely. It all helps, every experience, everything. Yeah, I feel myself improving as a musician all the time, which is great, you know.
So join the local choir would be your advice.
Yeah, yeah. Start with the choir and work your way up.
No, that's fantastic, and it's kind of inspirational. Now, you've talked about the divas and stuff like that. Has there been a particular song that you heard that really rocked your world? Like, did you just heard a song and went, oh, that?
So, yeah, I Have Nothing by Whitney Houston is like my diva song that if I could sing one song note for note perfectly, it would be I Have Nothing. I love that song so much.
Oh yeah, and you're not alone. Like, even though she's a feminine sound, I think that's why I like women singers better than men singers, and it's not that.
Oh yeah.
There's something more natural about listening to a woman.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I don't know why it works. It just kind of like it just does with that. Look, you've mentioned. So tell us about you. So I know you're from the New Hebrides in Scotland. And
yeah.
You speak a bit of Gaelic, is that the case?
I used to be fluent. So me and my sister, the school that we went to, all of our classes were in Gaelic. So we spoke fluently. But when we moved here, because we were still pretty young, I was 11 when we got here. And just because no one around us was speaking that language and we weren't at home either, we sort of fell off of it, which makes me really, really sad because I'm not fluent anymore. I can still say some words. Like I can say good morning and stuff, but that's it.
Can you understand it when you hear it?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't heard someone speak that language since I was there.
Yeah.
So
it's all on the internet now, and there'd be songs and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if I went back and was there for a while, I'd pick it up pretty quick though.
So tell us about Clan Muir. Tell us about you and, like, you know, how you come like a good New Hebrides girl is living in sunny far north Queensland. I mean, people like us with our crappy skin, we're supposed to be out, you know, on a UV reading of more than 1.5. And here we are in North Queensland, you know.
Yeah, so where we were living was this tiny little island. The population was like 1,200, really, really, really tiny. And it was a really great place to grow up. It's so pretty if you look up photos of it. It's gorgeous, but it's so small, and there were just no opportunities. And for the way me and my sister we're very, very creative people, and my parents wanted the best for us. They wanted more opportunities for us. So we were like, we gotta go, we gotta move. And I, at first, was like, we should move to America. But my parents did not want to go to America because, well, I'm glad we didn't now when you see everything that's happening. And so they started thinking New Zealand. Super random, but New Zealand was very difficult to get into. So the next option was Australia. So yeah, we just literally out of the blue just applied for a visa and we're like, let's just do it. And then we did it. We flew to Brisbane and then drove up the coast, stopping at every destination and just having a look, seeing what we liked. And yeah, we reached Cairns and we were like, yeah, this seems like home. So we stayed.
That's fantastic. And what school did you go to?
Redlanch State College.
Ready.
Yeah, ready.